Okay, welcome back everybody. Well, it's been a long time since I've tried to tackle a Jimmy Page Led Zeppelin song, and I can only go for so long. And so this week we're going to do Fool in the Rain by Led Zeppelin. This is a great fun song off of In Through the Outdoor, their last studio album. And if you tune into this, you know from a guitar standpoint there's some interesting stuff in here, and interesting effect that he's using on this. So on this lesson I'm going to go through what's happening on electric guitar. There's part that's kind of easy and there's a part that's not so easy, and there's a little bit of controversy on what effect actually he uses on the solo. I'm going to talk about that. And then there's two great acoustic parts that he plays on a 12 string, and I'm going to break those out for you too. So if this is the kind of thing that you like and you haven't done so yet, jump down and click subscribe and ring the bell. The bell will let you know when I drop new content. I do that every single week. All my lessons have chapters in them, so you can jump right to the part of the lesson that you want to see and bypass what you don't. And if you're looking for other ways to support the channel, I really appreciate that. There's thanks, which is just like throwing a tip in the tip jar. Or even better, you can join my Patreon page where I've got chord charts and tabs for all the lessons that I do on YouTube, like this one. Links in the description, so check it out. All right, so In Through the Outdoor. This is a super interesting, if you follow Led Zeppelin and Jimmy Page and the recording history of this album, this one's a little different. They went to Stockholm, Sweden, and they recorded in ABBA's studio. A lot of John Paul Jones, I think, dominated stuff in a lot of these songs. And this one's really fun. This is sort of a Caribbean feel, but it still has the Led Zeppelin magic on it. And we're going to talk about Jimmy's parts, okay? So there's two sort of electric parts I'm going to talk about. One is the main rhythm guitar, and the other one's going to be the lead guitar that sounds like a kazoo. Okay, so for electric guitar, let's start with the main rhythm guitar. In terms of getting your tone, he used Les Paul on this song for most of it. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And for tone, I'm actually just going straight into my amp, maybe a little reverb on here, but I'm running straight into my Fender Bassman. I've got it attenuated with my power station. All that details in the description for all my gear settings throughout this whole thing. So I'm just getting that great Jimmy tone where he's in the middle pickup with a little bit of amp power tube distortion going on, or power tube overdrive. And this is going to be based on, the chords of this song are really based off of C, F, and G. And there's a lot of little sort of permutations of those chords that go on. John Paul Jones has some great keyboard that he's laying on there throughout, and sometimes the F has sounds like it has that E, like an E, F major 7. But I'm not going to go too deeply in that. I'm going to talk about Jimmy's part that he's going on here, right? So the part that's dominating throughout the whole song is this, and it's basically triads, okay? So I'm going to bar straight across on 5, and I'm going to grab my C triad. Strings 4, 3, and 2. In fact, all of this little stuff is going to be 4, 3, and 2 only. And I'm muting my first string with my finger while I'm doing that. So here's the first shape, second shape, third shape, fourth shape, and fifth shape. So it's a C, that makes an F triad, that makes a G triad, that makes an F triad up here, and back to our G triad. Right? And we come down here. The first time, there's like an A and a B. The A has this little sting of this lower G triad. And then that's how you finish it off. First one. Second one. You just do that all day long. That's all there is to it. So for that rhythm part that's going on throughout almost all the entire song, that's the part. So just a Jimmy double pickup or middle pickup position, a little bit of gain, and there you go. You want to have that sort of clarity. You don't want to have a lot of distortion on that, but super tasty little part, right? Okay, now the guitar lead. Let's jump to that. That's what everyone sort of focuses on, or at least what I always have when I thought about this song. I'm like, what is he doing? Like, what effect is he using? And like, oh my God, that's so fast. What scale is he doing? Like, what is he doing with that? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the different scale positions first. Okay, I'm going to talk about where he's doing these runs that he's doing, and I'm going to show you two different. You can do them more than two different ways, but I'm going to show you two different ways that make sense for this and why it works. Okay, so first of all, is he using a scale? What is it? And I believe the answer is yes. It's a G Mixolydian scale is what it is. So you think about the chords. G is sort of the home. That's sort of the home chord. I don't know if you'd call this the key of G, the song, but G is sort of home base. I know you start on a C chord, but G is sort of the... I do. I feel like it's G, right? So what I'm going to talk about for just a minute is this thing called the Mixolydian mode. Now, if you're all over these modes and know, you can skip to the next part. But and I am no definitive master of modes. I'm not at all. In fact, I just had to learn this when I was learning this song and decode it. And so, but here's what's going on. A mode, the different major scale modes, is basically just think of the C major scale, or we're familiar with those tones. Okay, so that's, I think they call it the Ionian. That's the main normal scale, major scale, the Ionian scale. So Mixolydian changes one note in that scale. And it just takes the seventh note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, takes the seventh note and it flattens it. A half step, right? So now the scale is, if you want to think of it in terms of C. And what they call it G Mixolydian because, at least in the context of this song, G is sort of the home base, and he's basing these runs off of a G note. But he's playing that C, he's playing the rest of that C scale from this G position. The reason that scale seems to work here is because your chords are C, F, and G. What it's doing is it's adding that F note into it. Right? Okay, so just a little bit about theory. So the position 1 is here, where he's playing this little run. And maybe he hits that note in that position there. There's another position, if you just sort of carry that on up the fretboard, another great convenient position where that you could play that scale is here. Let's start with the G note here. And you keep going. Right? And I'm going to show you those two positions because really those are the two places where I believe he's playing these runs. And you could actually do the entire solo in this position very easily. I think the way that Jimmy plays, he sort of starts with a home bass and he runs up the neck a little bit and then he runs back down. And I think that's what he's doing. So he's starting down here and going up and going down. Possibly, but you could play him in different ways. So I'm going to show you two different ways to play these runs based on those positions. Okay, so let's talk about the effect now. So the effect that he's using introduces fuzz and a sub-octave, or 2 octaves down, okay? And if you look on the interwebs, everybody says, oh, it's an MXR Blue Box. Because the MXR Blue Box does that. It has a fuzz and it pulls in a sub-octave, okay? And Jimmy actually says in the Jimmy Page book that he used an Octavider. Okay, an Octavider is, I think Mutron, I want to say, is the company that made that. And it was a clean octave effect that just took your signal and it split and did a double octave, but maybe it did a single octave and a double octave, but it did a double octave and it was clean. It didn't have fuzz in it in those original ones in the 70s that I could see. So he must have had a fuzz into that Octavider, if it was the Octavider. Now, if you look on the internet, like I said, everybody says it's the MXR Blue Box. Everybody except Jimmy Page, by the way, says it's the MXR Blue Box. So I'm going to have two sets of effects here. I'm going to have a Fulltone Ultimate Fuzz running into my Boss Super Octave OC3 to approximate what I'm hearing Jimmy talk about with the Octavider. And I have a blue box here. It's a Script, I believe it's a reissue, MXR Script style blue box. And I've got this dialed up, and here's what it sounds like. Which is pretty close. In the room here, it sounds pretty close. Hopefully it translates online. Okay, but you can hear that sort of sub-octave going on. Now the thing about these blue boxes is they sort of, sometimes they track well with the note, sometimes they don't. They sort of fuzz out, not evenly, they're a little noisy. So that's one option, and that's what that blue box sounds like. I'm going to show you another option as well, which accomplishes the same thing. If you have a fuzz, any fuzz, there's a great pedal called a Super Octave that Boss has. I have a Super Octave OC3. It's a little older. They have a OC5, I think is the new version now, which has all the OC3 settings in it. But I also like the way these things sound together. I'm doing the same thing. I'm creating fuzz and I'm creating a sub-octave. I'm just doing it separately. But that blue box, to my ear, it doesn't let the character of the guitar through, in my opinion, the tone of the guitar. And when I'm listening on the record, I hear it differently. Like I hear his guitar, sort of the direct signal, a lot cleaner. Now I know they've got like all the gadgets and everything to make it sound however they want, and they're Led Zeppelin, right? So that might be what's going on. But when I click this on, these two on together, it sounds like this. Sort of the low octave, I think, tracks a lot better. So I don't know, it's just sort of personal preference. I sort of like, at least in the room, I like the way this sounds a lot better, and I'm probably going to carry on the rest of the lesson with this part using that particular effect grouping. So okay, so let's actually talk about the solo part, right? So the solo, I think it starts down here in this position. That's that first position that we learned. So a little intro to the solo. Okay, that outlines perfectly this whole scale in this position, right? That whole little run. I think it's an open string, or you can go. But I like playing it with the open string. Okay, so that's all right there. That's all your that Mixolydian scale. Perfect, laid out there. Then he goes on this little speed run, and he starts the speed run on the G. Right? And what he's doing on that is he's sort of doing a little bit of a climb, then he comes back down. Then he does a little bit higher, then he comes back down a little bit. And then he goes a little bit higher than that, and he goes back down. And that's sort of the pattern of what he's doing on here, but he's starting on this G note. And he gets up to that A note. That's the highest note, right? So I'm not going to do every little pick stroke here, but I want to show you, I'm going to outline sort of where he's going. So notice I'm going, I just went up, I went back down. Now I'm going to go a little higher. Something like that. Right? He's just building every time. Da 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 da. Right, so I was on that little run, I went up the B string and down the G string. All the same notes, just change the string. There you go. And then we're going to come back down and stutter step again. Again, outlining that scale shape. Then we're going to go on another run. Now, then this next run, you're going to go as high. You're taking all the notes that you did in that scale, and you're going to add on those two notes in those positions, right? So somehow you got to get from here all the way up here, and then you're probably going to come back down again. All the way back down again, right? So that's the run. And feel free to stutter all over the place. Whoops. Back to our G. Now we're going to do this little octave and rake on E. I think of that as a little C triad. 2 frets down off a D. Okay, so that's version number 1 on how you can play it, all right? Version number 2 is you can be all up in this position right here. And all your notes are right there, so you have that higher, it's all right there. And you can do the entire solo all in that position very easily. So the intro would be... Right, it's all right there, right? Then you do your little run, and the first run, there's your top note. All right there. Yeah, so then you have your little octave thing. You know, you can play that up here. Right, so that's option 2, okay? And by the way, let's just compare the two effects, by the way. So here's the sort of my Fulltone Fuzz into my Super Octave. Now let's hear the Blue Box. So let me know in the comments which sound you sort of prefer. Okay, after that, there's a last electric part. That's sort of about at the climax part of the song on the last verse. And Jimmy Page actually talks about Benny or Bjorn giving him a guitar during those sessions, and he felt obligated to use it on one of these, on some of the songs. And I think it was on this part, he said that he pulled that out. I think it's an Ibanez, and it's the part that sounds like this. Right? That whole thing. Now the part, because he's so fuzzed up with this, he still has the octave on with this thing. The octave doesn't sound like, it starts to fall apart when you start to play chords, even fifths with this. So he's playing single notes and pretty minimal, right? So he's doing C, F, and G. Single notes. And then he does a little pickup to get to the C chord. And I actually don't think he actually plays the C chord. I think he actually plays this little, he plays that open G string over where you would play a C. Because the keys and bass are playing that C and holding that down. And the only sort of really hard thing to pick out is like, what is that little riff that he's doing there? I've heard people do, that doesn't sound right to me. You know, I don't know that I hear all of that. I hear this. Or, I hear that for sure. And sometimes I think I hear this. Right, the slide up to give that sort of C triad. Sort of like, you could do that. Anyway, I like doing this. So pick your poison, pick your preference on that. But that's the essence of that electric part there. It's single note, it's root, it's the F, it's the G, and then it's a little pickup to play that open G string over the C chord. And it's just about how you get there. Okay, even more fun maybe than the electric is the acoustic parts that he does on this song. Now there's two parts that he layered in, and they're just awesome, and they're played on a 12 string, supposedly. The first one has this great Latin feel, and it's just playing part of a C, F, and a G chord. He's just playing the top parts of those chords, and it's all down here in first position, and it goes like this. is to it. You can play it different places on the neck, but I don't hear all those. I don't hear all those octaves throughout the whole thing. He's pretty sure he's playing that down here. And yeah, so it's just, so if that's a C chord, you're just playing the top part. And there's an F chord. It's actually an F major 7 because you're playing an open E. And it with the top of a G chord, and then this little major scale taking you back to home. And it's perfectly complementing the bass. What the bass is doing, it's going to sound funny on a 12 string here, but what the bass is doing on that part is, that's what the bass is doing. Right? And so Jimmy's just playing on the top of it. So that's what John Paul Jones is playing. Jimmy is playing the top part of the chord in harmony. So it's like, right? And so on. Just brilliant. So the other part that he's doing that's great, it's during the outro, it's all sort of, it's got these great pull-off parts, again, based off the C-F sort of chord, G chord progression. But he's doing these pull-offs. It's all sort of between the 3rd fret, and there's one note up here on the 8th fret, but it sounds like this. Okay. Again, you could choose to play a couple of those notes in different places. You could play that B note there, but then you have to jump over here to that, you know, that next part, and that's why I think he's playing that open B. So slowly, that's your C, that's your F major 7, right? C, F major 7, then you're doing this scale sort of working backwards. And that allows you to jump right back with your hand back here to the 3rd fret. Okay? The only nuance that he does, and he does it every time as far as I can tell, when he does this little scale rundown, he sneaks up, he sneaks into that F note there. And he does that every time. You know, little nuance there. And then the last one to close it, just an F triad to G triad, right? You could really hear the 12 string notes on that one, but C, F, G. And that, my friends, is Fool in the Rain by Led Zeppelin, and I hope you learned something new today. If this is the kind of thing that you like and you haven't done so yet, jump down, subscribe, click a like, ring the bell. The bell will let you know when I drop new content. I do it every week. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this, and if there's another lesson you want me to take on and do another song similar, let me know what that is too. But until next week, take care, everybody.